If you're a leader, you have to almost be that eternal optimist. You can't show up negative or miserable because you are effectively the culture carrier of that organization. Everyone looks up to you.
For those who want to become entrepreneurs, what is it really like?
First of all, do you really want to do it? Recognize that it's going to be really, really hard work. Is it something that you're really passionate about? There was a great quote, I think it was from Chrysler. Enthusiasm is the secret to success. If you're not enthusiastic about what you're doing, why is anyone else going to be?
Are you going to be passionate about it on a cold day?
As an entrepreneur or CEO, you'll have two problems. First one is people issues. The second one are people issues that you don't know about yet. And I was just like, that's so true. I'm Suki Sandhu, the founder and CEO of Audeliss and Involve. We employ almost 50 people, and this is my Duvet flip.
Why diversity and inclusion?
The reason why I'm really passionate about it personally is because I tick lots of boxes myself. I'm British Indian, I'm gay, I'm working class. I'm really passionate about making sure that there's more representation of people like me, but also women, LGBT+, black people. You can't be what you can't see. People have to also feel like they belong. If you're more inclusive for LGBT+ people, they're going to be 32% more productive, more engagement, more customers and clients, and more revenues.
Where are we now?
There is progress in some circumstances, but then if you look at the C-suite and leadership team, gender representation and race representation is really bad. That's who the employees tend to see and look up to. So there's definitely a lot more change that needs to happen there.
I agree. And my final question, are you ready for it? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet? So welcome to my duvet flip. How are we?
No, I'm actually good. I mean, as a founder, you're always tired. I had like a checkup with my doctor this week and he was like, when was the last time you woke up feeling refreshed? And I was like, do people wake up feeling refreshed? I was like, I'd quite like that. But actually, no, things are really good in the businesses. I feel really content and happy. We've got a great team around me. I think that you're really good, only as good as the people around you. And I feel like we're in a really good place people-wise.
That
makes me happy.
You said you wake up tired, and I could not agree more. And sometimes you have to put a smile on, and go into your acting mode just to get through the day, right?
Yeah.
There's loads going on. That's how sometimes I have to. When I'm around across London, I'm like, okay, I've got lots to do. Let's just smile. For those who want to become entrepreneurs, they might be 18, or they might be trying to figure it out. What is your advice to them in terms of what is it really like to be an entrepreneur? Because we see the glam, right?
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah. Great question. And actually, you're right with the whole putting the face on when you wake up, because and actually it's not only if you're a founder or entrepreneur or CEO, if you're a leader in a business, let's say it's the CEO role, you have to almost be that eternal optimist because your team is expecting you to be that, because you can't show up negative or miserable because you are effectively the culture carrier of that organization. Everyone looks up to you for the values and behaviors that are expected in the business. So it is exhausting having to always be happy, and everything you do as a CEO is scrutinized, right? Everyone's looking at you. So when we used to be in offices, because we all work remotely now in my companies, even things like if I put my mug down too hard and it was just an accident, someone would be like, oh, he's in a mood today. I'm like, no, I generally just put it down like by accident. I'm not in a mood. So I think that's quite tricky to do, because I think we're allowed to have our off days. And so for me, if a young person wants to, or any person wants to be an entrepreneur, I think first of all, really think long and hard, do you really want to do that? Because it is really, really hard work. Like success doesn't just land in your lap. You know that you have to work really hard and get out there. You have to hustle, particularly when it's a startup. So I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, first of all, do you really want to do it? Recognize that it's going to be really, really hard work. Is it something that you're really passionate about? There was a great quote I think I saw a while ago. I'm trying to think where, I think it was from Chrysler, where enthusiasm is the secret to success. Right? And I really believe that, because if you're not enthusiastic about what you're doing, why is anyone else going to be? So I think that's like a really core principle. Be passionate and excited about what you're doing. And I think it's okay to not have a plan. I know everyone says, create a business plan, follow it. I've never done a business plan. I've never done that. And I think actually, I don't think it's hindered us in any way, like in terms of growth, because I think we're doing relatively well. I mean, we've had our peaks and troughs, and it's a roller coaster of a ride when you're running a business, but I think it's okay to not go in with a plan, unless of course you're going in with an idea when you want to build a biotech business and you need millions of investment. That's a different matter entirely. Because if you're doing that, then you do need a business plan. You need to be able to present that to then raise the capital to run the business. And I think when you run a business, I think it's really important to have someone that can act as like your coach, your mentor, because it can be really lonely. Like as a founder or entrepreneur, you have, I mean, we've got nearly 50 employees. I'm responsible for all their salaries each month. It's my money. It's not someone else's money injected into the business. So I'm always, maybe that's why maybe that's why I don't sleep properly, is because I suppose the stress of that is really stressful. And people that don't have their own business, that haven't used their own capital, don't understand that. Like it's really, really terrifying. And I always want to be about growth. I don't ever want to have to fire people or make redundancies. So it's just be aware of like the enormous stress it puts on you both physically and mentally doing the role.
So what I'm hearing is really decide whether you want to become an entrepreneur or not. Why are you doing it? What's the purpose? Are you going to be passionate about it on a cold day? And is it legacy setting? Is it something that you want to solve? What is that you're trying to do?
Yeah.
You don't always need a plan, because unless you're, like you said, raising for a cure or something like that, sometimes it could just be organically, and really consider whether you need investors or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just recognize that it can be a lonely place. So create that support system around you, because I couldn't do it without my husband, who's been by my side for the last nearly 19 years.
But then also is who can you trust on the outside to, when people are really busy as well, to say, oh, have you ever had this problem, or what would you do here? We're young entrepreneurs, we've got a lot to learn.
I read the Sunday Times like every weekend. I don't read as much current affairs as I would like, because it's just so depressing with all the news in the world. But without fail, I read the Sunday Times business section and Style magazine every week, because I love fashion. They're the two things, and I actually read Style magazine first and then the business section. But I read it, and they always have a section where they interview like an entrepreneur or a CEO, and they ask for like advice that they would give. And I remember like about a year ago, there was this biotech CEO, I forget his name, who built this company to be a unicorn, like $1 billion valuation. And his advice was, as an entrepreneur or CEO, you'll have two problems. First one is people issues. The second one are people issues that you don't know about yet. And I was just like,
thank you for that.
So true. I'm so glad he vocalized it, because it's so true. And actually my leadership team know that as well, with hires we've had over the years. And believe me, I made some pretty terrible hires. But what actually drives me more so is that when you have a great team, actually my team inspires me to like do more and be better. And so actually the other thing I would say to the younger generation, if they want to set up a business, is get good at delegation when you start hiring people. Like you have to empower people and trust them and let them get on with the job. And if you do, they'll work even harder for you and do even better things. So an interesting fact around me is, back in the day, I want to say this must have been 12 years ago, I was spotted in Shoreditch by this talent scout who was chasing me in Shoreditch and wanting my attention. I thought they were trying to sell me something. And then as I was walking away, they were like, hey, we want you to star in a music video. So that caught my attention. And I turned around and I was like, what music video? And she said, Fergie, from Black Eyed Peas. So I was like, I mean, that'd be pretty cool. So they then signed me up to then spend the day. They paid me £150. And then I'm in Fergie's music video in London Bridge. You can find it on YouTube. I'm only in it for a few seconds. And I also had a shaved head at the time. And I'm one of the paparazzi at the back. But I got to meet the other models and dancers and got to meet Fergie, and it was super fun. Something that I will always remember.
Few questions in there that's just rammed over. So let's start here. Your husband has been such a supporter. Is he an entrepreneur? Does he?
He's in my leadership team.
Oh, so he's in the business.
Yeah, I mean, he would call himself the co-founder, but he's not.
Cool. Because what I was going to ask, but you've answered it, is how do you become an entrepreneur, then also have a partner when there's no kind of link? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're all in, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
You try and be a founder, you try and be all in, and then obviously things are happening, and you're like, okay, it's like probably. As you probably get older, you might just be a bit more calmer and know when to put things to one side. But with me, no matter what time, it might be with you as well, what time of the day, whatever it is, I'm just like, this is
always
really
on.
I'm always on.
Yeah,
if he's in the business, he understands it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's interesting because so I met him before I launched Audeliss. So we've been together nearly 19 years, and we were both working for the same company when we met. And obviously I moved on and he moved to London to come and live with me. And so I started the business when we were together. And he was also in the recruitment industry. So he understood what the product was. And it was literally from the 3rd bedroom of my home in Whitechapel is where I started the business. And so the fact that he understood what I did day to day made a difference, right? Because he understood the product in terms of what we're delivering to clients. And the reason we're working together now, and he joined over 3 years ago, is because of the pandemic. Like with the remote working, and it was like we were working together in the same office. He was working for a tech company and I was obviously running Audeliss and Involve. And he joked that he could almost pitch Audeliss if I went sick because he'd heard it a million times on work calls. So, because it kind of felt we were working together, it didn't seem that much of a leap for him to come and work in the leadership team. And he applied for it because his job came up in the leadership team, almost like a head of TA in Audeliss to do hiring for our clients. So rather than being a head of TA in-house, which is what he's done for LinkedIn, HSBC, Samsara, etc., he'd be doing it for multiple clients. So he applied for it. The team were a bit nervous because he's my husband, and they felt like, well, you know, he's my husband, I'm just going to hire. I was like, no, you have to work for it. If the team have to also decide they think you're the right person, and they did.
Goes back to your empowerment.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So initially it was like a 6-month contract. And then the team loved him. He's a great manager. He was made permanent, and now 3 years later, he's the MD for Audeliss. The thing is, what are you looking for when you hire someone? And you all know this. You want someone that you can trust. You want someone that gives a shit about what you do. You want someone that is going to work really hard, and you want someone that's really passionate. And so for me, I have all of that in my husband. Like if I ask him to do something, I know he's going to do it. He may not always do it to the standard that I want, but he will do it, you know, and he'll try and do it as best as he can. And the key thing for us too is just having that open dialogue and communication. And we have our disagreements. And also, you know, as a founder CEO, you don't always get your way. Probably get my way 50% of the time because you try and be inclusive to other people's opinions and ideas. But yeah, it works really, really well because I know he's also got my back, and that's really important to me.
Really important.
And he's really loyal. So loyalty is really important to me. Like as a founder entrepreneur, like I've been through some pretty horrible people situations over the years. And for me, people that are loyal to me, I'm fiercely loyal back. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm fiercely loyal to people around me. But you cross me or my family or friends, it's really hard to build that trust back. And I don't have that issue with him because he's my husband.
Wow, so it just works.
It genuinely really, really does, yeah.
I see so much online. Everything's a pretty picture. Everything's filtered. Everything's graceful. Everything's great. And I've just done this number and this, and everyone seems to have a hockey stick business plan and everything. Do you think that entrepreneurship is being shown in a way authentically, or do you think we still got a long way to go?
No, it's definitely, I think people just see the glamorous side. It always makes me think of that image, I'm sure you've seen it, of the iceberg, which you see above the water, and then below you see like anxiety, stress, hard work, challenges, whatever it might be. And we don't see enough of that. And I've kind of thought about it over the years, like, should I share more on like social media or LinkedIn about the challenges? But then what I don't want is people to think, woe me, here's the little violin, like he's trying to get, because it's not what I'm trying to do, but it's just trying to make people realize that yes, there is the nice side and successful side of entrepreneurship, but it doesn't come naturally. There's a lot of work that you have to do to get there. And I mean, there's also stats, I mean, the level of mental health issues and suicide amongst entrepreneurs is really high because of the stress and anxiety of the job. It's not easy. So I think actually there needs to be a more honest, authentic picture of what entrepreneurship really means.
And in terms of mental health, what do you do to manage, maintain, and support your mental health?
Yeah, I definitely need to do more. So I know that I don't probably do enough because, like you, I'm probably always on. I can't stop thinking about the business. I'm always like thinking of the next opportunity. Like, who do we need to hire? Are we going into this client? How do we grow this? I'm always thinking business opportunities because it's self-funded. Like, so that puts a little bit of extra pressure on me. But the way I do it is I love to travel, and I have to be really mindful about stepping away from my devices. So like when, an example is we went to Mumbai in the Maldives, not this New Year, the New Year before. And because it's over the Christmas period, that's a quiet period in professional services. Clients are away, they're not really expecting as much, so I can actually try and switch off. And when we went to the Maldives, we were there for 9 nights, and friends were like, that's a very long time in the Maldives. I was like, yeah, because I don't want to do anything. And so when we were there, I'd already detoggled all my emails, personal and work, from my devices, which I don't think like 10 years since I've done that. I don't think I've ever done that. And
Did you have to Google how to do it?
No, it was easy because it was on the iPhone or the iPad.
And why did
but
you
it was
not?
interesting when I did it because I had this anxiety of doing it. So I did that before we broke up for Christmas, before going to Mumbai. And I remember speaking to my EA, I think about a few hours after I detoggled and say, just check, is everything okay? Because I was so nervous about doing it. And then I kind of got used to it. It was so weird not checking emails. And then when I was in the Maldives, I'd also stopped social media, but I'd kept Instagram. And then when I went to the Maldives, I deleted Instagram because I wanted to just be off it. And it was just incredible to not be on any social media, including Instagram. And I think I read like 5 books that week.
Wow.
Really switched off and really relaxed. And I came back, I even think the team were like, I'm probably a bit too zen coming back. But so things like, so being mindful about device usage is really important to me. And I love fitness, so exercising, because I try and do activities that is, for me, that where I can't get distracted by devices or work. So you're really, like I did a horse riding class a few months ago. I've never done one before. And it's great because you can't really have your phone. You have to focus on the horse. And it was really great. So I want to do that again. And just trying to, I love reading. I love like socializing and seeing my friends is another great distraction. Because also you want like your cheerleaders and supporters around you, but not necessarily always talking about work. So I think things like that really work.
And has that come naturally, or have you had to work on that structure to get to the stage where you're starting to feel more balanced?
I've had to really work at it because I am naturally a workaholic. I'm from a working class family in Derby. To give you a sense of my background, my dad came from India when he was like 6 years old. My mum came over when she married my dad in her early 20s, and my parents were like shopkeepers. We didn't grow up with very, very much. And so when, and the area that we're in wasn't necessarily an affluent area. So when you saw like customers coming in, like paying for a pint of milk or a loaf of bread using pennies and coins, and I was like, I don't want that. I don't ever want to struggle in that way. And so when you see that, and my parents obviously got us to work quite hard and instill that work ethic, and education was really important, that I suppose that's where I get my relentless work ethic from. Like I definitely have it because of that. I have this massive fear of failure. And also because I have so many people to be responsible for, mouths to feed, that it keeps you going for sure. But I also want to make sure I'm doing the right things and running a successful business. So an interesting fact about the organization, or organizations, I suppose, I was going to choose one specifically for Audeliss, is that last year, over 82% of our appointments were diverse. And that's appointments. That isn't long list or short list representation. These are candidates that are winning those seats of power and influence in business. Nearly 60% were women, nearly half were racially diverse, and over 10% were LGBT+. So we truly are changing the face of business.
The word failure, it's really respected in America.
Yeah.
If you fail, brilliant. Here, it feels like people are waiting for you to fail.
Yeah, agreed.
And like, it's really weird because on my community, young people, majority, love what you're doing, thanks for helping. Women over the age of, or any women actually, brilliant, supportive, mumsy, everything in between, lovely. The 40 to 45-year-old white bald man will attack me. And anything that I do, it's just trying to, and we've tried to figure it out, like, who's being nasty? I've had people turn up at the door, people send me gas thing, and you're just like, what's going on? And I don't get involved with any politics online as soon as politics happens.
Yeah.
It just is that sometimes people in the world want to tear people down.
Yeah.
When you're doing something good. How do you not let people tear you down? How do you then not let that turn into failure? You said you had some people problems across the 14 years. I don't want to go into the people problems, but how do you then say to the next person, you know what, I'm going to give you trust? When the trust, you give trust and then it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I've been through a lot of this, and I think another bit of advice for young people about being an entrepreneur, you need to have a thick skin, right? Because you will you will go through experiences where you'll be so disappointed and so upset, and largely around people issues. And I've had it even recently, almost a year ago, where one of my team resigned completely out of the blue, did not expect it, and it was just a really horrible experience. And then there were things that happened in the notice period where they kind of basically breached their contract. It was awful, and we were supposed to be friends. And I remember speaking to a chairman the week it happened, or the week I found this stuff was happening, and it was like he's the FTSE chairman. He's a client we work with. And I wasn't expecting to talk to him about it, but it talks about people don't want to lean on. And it turned into a counseling session for me. And I said to him, how can I trust people when this is someone that's supposed to be a friend and a really senior leader in the business? And he was like, Suki, you can't let one person affect your opinion of people generally, because you're always going to get bad eggs, right? And then I have to remind myself of the good people in my company who do have integrity, who are honest and are great. And so I have to go back to that. But at the time, it feels like your whole world's fallen apart. And I do get a lot of trolling online, particularly and I find it amazing getting it on LinkedIn. Because you can see people's names and job titles, and I've seen like homophobic comments on if we might do something around LGBT+. And what I do is I normally screen grab it, and normally we know like really senior leaders in those companies, I'll send it and say, just so you know, one of your employees has done this, let them deal with it themselves, because there should be consequences. And I think And
do you get responses?
I have someone that said they're going to deal with it, and it's up to them to deal with it. But yeah, because there should be a zero tolerance to things like that. But even because I love fashion, so before the pandemic, I was starting to do content where I was posting a picture of my outfit in the week, because I wanted to help men with dressing for work. So a lot of men think they have to wear a shirt, tie, and a suit, and I'm like trying to say, you don't have to wear that to look smart. There are other things you can do. Then the pandemic happened, and obviously then everyone was wearing maybe something nice here, but then like maybe nothing underneath, quite frankly, or you'd be lucky if they're wearing underpants.
Absolutely.
So I stopped that content, and I've recently been posting again. And I normally tag the brand of what I'm wearing, because I get loads of messages about, who is it? Where did you buy it from? I remember on one post, I got trolled because I also like nice brands, and I've worked really hard to get to where I am. I don't have any children. I've been really sensible with money. If I want to spend money on a luxury brand, on a jumper or whatever, I shouldn't have to justify it to anyone. It's my money. But then I'll get criticized about some of the brands that, oh, he's in inclusion and look at him spending all this money. I'm like, since when did you have to be in inclusion and be poor or not allowed to make money? Like, how are you not allowed? You can balance purpose and profit. What is wrong with that? And actually, that made me really angry on that point, where I was like, they're expecting me to do something that I don't want to. And I'm like, I'm my own person. I should be able to do what I want to do. And I don't criticize anyone. And there's something in business about when you're managing people, particularly because our business is all around diversity and inclusion, there's this perception that if you do diversity and inclusion, you can do whatever you want. Or diversity and inclusion can't be balanced with high performance, which is not true. You can demand both in a business, and you can do it in an inclusive way. And it's something actually a lot of CEOs I talk to have that same issue, trying to drive inclusion and high performance, but feel they can't do both at the same time because the challenges or pushback they might get from individuals. So even that whole thing around moving people back into an office 5 days a week, I think that's insane to do that. Have we not learned anything from the pandemic and remote working, where flexible working does drive more inclusion and drives better engagement, better productivity, etc. So I think that's pretty key. But the whole trying to manage your own kind of mental health and attacks that you might get personally, it's really hard.
You don't stop posting the fashion stuff though,
No, I did one this week.
You do more, don't you?
I'm like, well, I'll show the haters that I'll do what I want to do. And actually, it's one of my passions that I'm really excited about. And we recruit into the fashion industry as well, both luxury and mass market. And I really love having those clients, and I want to support them too.
I want to talk a little bit about why diversity and inclusion, what the world looks like, educate us.
Yeah.
And you're in the space, you are the expert. Tell us a little bit about why more brands need to basically stand up. And we was having a little conversation off set around how many females and how many women are in FTSE 100 as CEOs in jobs. And when you said the numbers, I was just like,
it's shocking, yeah. The reason why I'm really passionate about it personally is because I tick lots of boxes myself. Like I'm British Indian, I'm gay, I'm working class. The weirdest thing about me actually is I'm from Derby in the Midlands, because they never believe that. They think I'm a posh Londoner, and actually, even though I say London, so you hear it with my accent when I say my vowels, I say up and path and grass, you say grass. So that's when people realise I'm not like from London. And actually growing up in quite, I would say, relatively religious, strict, like Sikh Indian household, where it was all about family. My parents did raise us to be independent, but I've seen like clashing cultures, right? Where the Indian culture and the British culture have clashed over the years when I was growing up. And I know what it's like to be in the closet. I know what it's like to have to hide your identity, because being gay is, well, also, back then was a very different time to what it is now. So I think I came out in my early 20s, so over 20 years ago, and that was still a very different time to what it is now. And so for me, I know what it's like to be in the closet and then be out the closet being yourself, and just how much better you feel when you can be yourself. So I kind of really passionate about making sure that there's more representation of people like me, but also women, LGBT+, Black people. I want to make sure there's lots of representation. You can't be what you can't see. So that's really important. But then people have to also feel like they belong. Because there's one thing by ticking the box by changing the look of a leadership team or a boardroom, but then does that person that's diverse in the boardroom feel heard? Do they feel like they belong? And that's equally as important. And so the work we do and involve in the Black British Business Awards and the Network of Networks is all really valuable in helping retain talent at all levels in a business. And the reason why diversity inclusion is important, it goes back to the original business case, which is really well rehearsed. There's lots of really great data around it. And the reason it was put together to begin with is to encourage these CEOs, who are all largely straight white men, because doing diversity inclusion because it's the right thing to do wasn't enough. That wasn't enough of an impetus to get them to do it. So there needs to be the data set or the research created so they could see, for instance, if you're more inclusive for LGBT+ people, they're going to be 32% more productive, right? If you have more representation of race at a senior level, McKinsey did some studies where you will be more profitable as a business. So, and actually things like I think Google did some research about consumer behavior, where consumer spending was higher for brands that were deemed to be inclusive. So this is all contributing to more productivity, more engagement, more customers and clients, and more revenues. And
just makes sense, right?
Line. It effectively makes money. There's this great woman on LinkedIn called Cindy Gallop, who's this great marketeer. And she, and I'm quoting it because I don't want to say that I made it, I got it from her. And she refers to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, as driving excessive income. And so I stole it, and I tagged her in it. So I'm stealing it from you, Cindy, because it's so true. So I think it's, the business case is so well rehearsed around productivity, engagement, profits, that I try and remind people that it's the right thing to do. Because actually I feel like that should be the priority now, and remembering that that's why you're doing it.
And are they listening enough? Or like, where are we since starting 14 years ago, and where are we now? Or are we just still too far away?
I think it's definitely better. So if you think about things like, so let's talk about the UK specifically. So for instance, like gender representation in the boardroom is now at 40% in the FTSE, right? 14 years ago, it was probably less than 10%. So that's progress. Even race representation with the Parker Review, and the Parker Review is a target for race representation, one person who's racially diverse on FTSE boards. I want to say nearly 95% of FTSE boards have got a racially diverse person on their board now, right? Compared to like 6 years ago. So there is progress in some circumstances, but then if you look at the C-suite and leadership team, so these are the individuals running the business. I don't have the stats to hand right now, but they are woeful. Gender representation and race representation is really bad. So although the boardroom might be better, and the boardroom, remember, they meet probably 9 times a year to talk about the business strategy. it's the C-suite and the CEO, the ones that are running the business every day, right? That's who the employees tend to see and look up to. So there's definitely a lot more change that needs to happen there. And I talked earlier about the gender stat for women CEOs in the FTSE 100. Like the pace of change is really slow, and that's if the women don't self-select out and change and go somewhere else. So it could take even longer. So I think in a lot of the instances, it has progressed. But then if you base it on different geographies, like in the US, there are still some states, for instance, where you could be fired for being LGBT+, right? So there are challenges that still exist in other regions in the world. And somewhere like the Middle East, it's really hard for women to get into positions of power and influence because they're not allowed to work or have an education or go to college. So it's always in context of the geography you're talking about from a legal landscape and policy landscape. An interesting fact in our industry is that when it comes to gender representation and gender parity for the CEO seat within the FTSE 100, at the current pace of change, we won't get equality until 2076. And I don't know about you, but I don't have that long to wait. So we have a lot more work to do, which is why we're trying to accelerate that pace of change.
So how important is it for young talent to come out, what you said you came out when you was 20, to come out when they feel ready?
Coming out is really personal, right? And I always say it should be on your own terms, right? Because I remember what I said earlier about geographically it varies, like the inclusion of LGBT+ community. So in the Middle East or in parts of Asia, it could be illegal and dangerous for them to come out, right? Or in Russia, for instance. So it should be in your own time. It should be when you're comfortable. It should be with friends or family members that you can trust and feel comfortable with. But no one should ever feel pressured to come out. Like, you should never be asking someone if they're LGBT+. Like, it's just, or if they're trans. It's like a really rude, inappropriate question. But what you could do is talk about your own identity and say, hey, I'm gay, I'm with my husband, been with him for nearly 19 years, would love to know more about you, right? So what you're doing is you're inviting them into a safe space where you've come out to them, because they may not have known, although most people know me because, I mean, this looks quite gay and I don't care. But you know, you have to like create a safe space for that to happen, right? So we should never be forcing it. So like, for instance, when we do these role model lists with YouTube for say, it's called Outstanding, it's the LGBT+ list. We celebrate the top 100 executives, top 100 future leaders, and then the top 50 allies or advocates. We've always said it's not about outing people. Like, we're not going to, so we make sure we have the permission of the person, because someone might get nominated, but they may not be out in the public sphere. And obviously we reach millions when these lists get published via YouTube. So we don't want to out anyone. And actually, when we started this list 11 years ago, so the very first one was with the Financial Times. It was a top 50 executives, never been done before. And it reached millions when it was out, but it was when it used to be printed in the FT as well as online. And actually, there was one person after it was published who wanted to come off the list because he didn't feel comfortable being on a platform. So whoever has a printed list might see the name, but they won't be online anymore. And it just shows you, even then, which was only 11 years ago, there were people that were still uncomfortable coming out. And even I know CEOs that aren't comfortable being on a platform talking about it or being themselves. And it comes from a range of, they don't want to be seen as different. They don't want to face any kind of prejudice or discrimination from their own team, even though they're the CEO and they're the boss. And it comes from a place of fear, ultimately. And so for us, what we try and do with these role model lists is to try and show that, first of all, we exist and we're out there in the world in lots of different fields, because being LGBT+ is invisible. You don't know unless someone tells you. So for us, we try and show, yes, we don't, like people like Graham Norton and Ellen DeGeneres, like Rosie O'Donnell, they're all fab entertainers, I love them, but we're more than entertainers. Like, we're CEOs in banking, we're partners in law firms, we're managing directors in consulting. Like, that's the kind of message we're trying to get across. So we're trying to challenge stereotypes about where people expect our community to be, and then trying to inspire the next generation to say that they can get there too, because this community already has. That's kind of that's why we started the role model list to begin with. And then it grew to being to cover race, women, and now also neurodiversity, disability, and mental health.
So for young people, it's don't be peer pressured to come out at work.
Or at home.
Or at home.
Yeah.
Come out when you're ready.
Yeah.
But there is platforms like your fantastic platform now showing that you can be whoever you want to be. And there's people at the senior at the organisation who have got where they are because of who they are. Yeah.
And also I try and live and breathe being authentic. So I'm unapologetically gay and I joke about being queer all year. So rather than just doing it for Pride Month in June, like we should be celebrating LGBT plus community throughout the year, like we should with women. The Black community, South Asian community, mental health, neurodiversity, we should be celebrating diversity throughout the year.
I agree. And what is your message for anyone who's starting a career? Like, you obviously work with a lot of organisations, getting people into organisations. What's your top tips for any young person who's stepping into the world of work for the first time, might be naive, will probably not have much experience, could have done a job at JD Sports or Asda or wherever it is? What is your message to them?
Just to quickly talk about an experience I had when I first started the graduate programme I spoke about in that big recruiting firm. On the first day, I was moving from Derby to London, so excited, closet gay, going to London thinking this is the big smoke, I'm so excited. And I was trying to be fashionable back then. And I was wearing this like dark purple aubergine suit with this multicolored stripy shirt and an aubergine tie. And I think I was the only working class person out of the 16 people they hired, right, that year in the graduate scheme. And all the other guys were wearing like grey navy suits, white shirt, red tie, like it almost looked like a uniform. And I really stood out. And I remember we all had drinks at the end of the day in the pub and one of the MDs turned around to me in front of everyone saying, "What on earth are you wearing, Suki? You look like a deck chair." And at the time, I like giggled along because I was so embarrassed. And I thought I was this cool dude coming from Derby. But so my advice to someone coming into a business is, yes, be yourself when you go into a business, but think about the environment in which you're in. We're in a business world where you have to sometimes play the game, right, to get ahead.
What do you mean play the game?
As in you sometimes might have to try and fit in within the culture and environment which you're in, right? Say for instance, with remote working, a lot of companies have hybrid working depending on the industry that you're in. So if it's like 3 days in the office, like I would say when you first start a job and you're going into the office, I'd probably go into the office more often. Right, go in more often to spend time with your colleagues because you want to get to know them and get that face time with them so they know who you are. And so following on from that, what's also important is networking. One thing I've learned from doing executive search where we do senior leadership hiring, a lot of it is about who you know, right? So you have to try and build your networks of communities, both as peers, but also above you. So I would say get involved in, and actually whether you're diverse or not, get involved in some of the employee resource groups. So even if you're not gay or LGBT+, join as an ally. Like get to know the community because then you will get execs that will come along to their events that you can get FaceTime with and get to know. So I think always build those relationships. Always be kind in your workplace because as you're climbing the ladder, you want to be nice to people because you may sometimes, as we talked about earlier in British culture, people love to see you fail. So as you're falling down, you want nice people along the way that might help you get back up again. So that's another CEO. I remember another CEO once telling me that and it was great advice. You have to work hard. Like let your talent shine above and beyond. So we have a lot of diverse communities wanting advice and they might be the chair of the LGBT+ community or chair of the women's network. I'm like, that's great. But make sure you're really good at your day job, right? Because first and foremost, if you're really good at your day job, that's also going to help you to get ahead. I think that's really, really critical. And the last thing I would say is help others. Like make sure you have the ladder behind you to support other people in and outside of your community because you can't really do much without other people around you. You need those cheerleaders and supporters for those days when you are having a bad day, right? And you want a shoulder to cry on. It can be lonely whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever. If you're in your own lane, you want to have that support network both inside and outside the workplace. So I think create that network where you're giving as much as you're getting because no one likes someone that just takes, right? And when you only just take, people will soon click onto that and you won't get as much help as you might think. So I think that's a pretty key thing too.
And my final question, are you ready for it?
Yes.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
I think it's more around, I want to drive the change that I want to see in business. And I want to accelerate it. Like some of the stats I gave you earlier, I showed you how slow it is. And I take a lot of personal responsibility through all the work we do in the businesses we operate in to try and support the companies we work with and try and drive the change we want to see. That's what gets me out of bed.
Well, that's a duvet flip and a half, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to do.
There is. Yeah, there's definitely, the battle is far from over. And also we can't be complacent. So this is the other thing, like we can't, like even with the women's, say, board representation getting to 40% in the FTSE, we can't be complacent about that because obviously the term limits end, they get renewed in new seats. It can easily go backwards if more women aren't appointed into those roles.
Agreed.
So actually it's really important we're not complacent either.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your energy, your kindness, you're all being so authentic and open and just joining us on it. You know, it's not bad with the aircon, we need to put it on more. And I love what you're wearing.
Thank you.
This needs to go up on LinkedIn so I can double like it just to annoy more people.
I will do, don't worry.
I just want to say thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you for having me.